So I hate to even say this, but we are about a month away from welcoming students back at the Episcopal School of Knoxville. And that means my mind has already started to shift into school mode, right? Class lists, chapel planning, religion lessons, the joyful chaos of another school year. But one of my favorite parts of my job is that I get to teach religion classes to our students, kindergartners, all the way through 8th grade. And every August, I have to remind myself this exact same thing. Don't expect May students in August. It sounds obvious when I say it out loud, but every year I catch myself doing it. By the end of the year, every class has found its rhythm. The kindergartners know where to sit. They know that when I say 1, 2, 3, eyes on me, that they respond 1, 2, eyes on you, and we're focused in and ready for the lesson. By then, they've learned what religion class feels like. The first graders have spent a whole year learning to be first graders. The same is true all the way up to 8th grade. But by May, we've built trust and grown together. Then August comes. A brand new group of students walk through the doors. Some kindergartners have never even met me. Every class begins the year in a different place than where the last year's class ended. And every August, I remind myself, growth takes time. It would be unfair to expect anything else. In fact, if I expected August students to act like May students, I'd miss one of the greatest gifts of teaching. Because one of the greatest joys of teaching isn't simply seeing where students end up, it's watching them get there. Growth almost never happens all at once. And I wonder if that's something we adults tend to forget, not just about children, but about ourselves and about the people around us. We are remarkably impatient with growth. We expect relationships to heal overnight, grief to disappear on a schedule, forgiveness to happen quickly, faith to come easily, people to change immediately. And when they don't, we quietly begin to wonder if anything is happening at all. We don't like slow growth. We want immediate results. We live in a world that if I ordered something right now online, there's a good possibility that it's gonna be at my door when I get home. If my phone takes more than a couple seconds to load, we think that something is wrong. We've become accustomed to instant everything, except the things that matter most never grow instantly. Trust, love, character, wisdom, faith, they all take time. And Jesus knew that. By the time we reach today's gospel, things aren't unfolding the way that many people around Jesus expected them to be. Jesus has been teaching and healing and welcoming and inviting, and yet people are still walking away. Religious leaders are becoming more hostile. Misunderstandings are growing. Opposition is building. If you were one of the disciples, you might have started to ask, shouldn't there be more to show for all of this? Shouldn't God's kingdom be growing faster than this? But instead of giving statistics or strategies or a 5-point plan, Jesus tells a story. A sower went out to sow. Now I have to confess something. When I read this parable, the easy place to focus my attention on is the different types of soil, right? Be good soil, don't be rocky soil, watch out for the thorns. And there is certainly truth there. But this week, I found myself noticing someone else, the sower. Because this sower doesn't seem to behave the way sensible people behave. He doesn't carefully inspect the field first. He doesn't say, oh, this patch right here, this looks promising. This patch over here, it doesn't look like it's worth my time. He doesn't ration the seeds. He scatters it everywhere, on the path, among the rocks, into the thorns, on the good soil. everywhere gets seed. And if I were giving this farmer advice, I might tell him to be more careful, right? Seed is valuable, don't waste it, find the best soil, make a plan, maximize your return. In other words, treat it the way we often treat things in our own lives. But Jesus paints a picture of a sower who refuses to live that way. He keeps sowing, even where growth seems unlikely, even when the odds aren't good, even when other people would have given up. And I think that's because this parable isn't about farming. It's about the heart of God. Jesus is showing us what God is like, a God who is far more patient than we could ever be, a God who is willing to wait for the growth that we would have given up on a long time ago. And that changes everything. And if that's what God is like, then perhaps one of the hardest lessons of our spiritual journey is learning to be as patient as God is in the growth. Because if we're honest, many of us spend our lives measuring against someone else's May. Quietly, we begin to believe that we're somehow behind. I should know more by now. I should trust God more by now. I should be over this grief by now. I should have this all figured out by now. Those words sound familiar because I'm sure that you have said them a time or two. But I don't think that those words sound very much like Jesus, because Jesus understands something about seeds. Seeds don't apologize for being seeds. They don't rush themselves into becoming fruit. Instead, they simply receive what the sower has given them: sunlight, rain, and time. And little by little, almost imperceptibly, they grow, almost unnoticed, until one day you look back and you realize something has been growing all along. And I think that that's true of faith. Very few of us can point to one dramatic moment and say, that's the day I became the person I am now. More often, faith grows through countless ordinary moments, and God continuing to sow in each of those. One quiet handful of grace after another. That's why I love the image of the sower. He doesn't stop because some land on the path. He doesn't quit because some fall among the rocks. He doesn't become discouraged because some land among the thorns. He simply keeps sowing, because the sower knows something the rest of us often forget. The harvest has never depended on our anxiety. The harvest belongs to God, and that's good news, because there are people that you love in your life that you're still waiting on growth to happen. There are prayers that you have been praying for years and years that are still unfolding. There are wounds that God is still healing. There are parts of your own heart where God is still patiently at work. We may not see much happening today, but that doesn't mean that nothing is happening at all, because the most important part of a seed's life happens underground before anyone can see it. In just a few moments, we'll gather around this font with Grayson, and I can't imagine a more fitting gospel for today, because baptism isn't a celebration that someone has arrived. It's a celebration of what God has begun. Grayson doesn't come today because he has deep faith and he has life all figured out. He comes because before he has done anything or accomplished anything, before anyone can predict the person he is going to be into the future, God says, "You are my beloved." The church doesn't baptize because we're confident that we found the perfect soil. The church baptizes because we're confident in the goodness of the sower. Because from the very beginning, our faith has always started with God's grace before our response, with God's promise before our performance, with God's love before our achievement. Today is not Grayson's finish line. It is the beginning of a lifelong journey in which God will continue to sow grace into his life. So perhaps we've been asking the wrong question of this parable. Maybe instead of what kind of soil am I, we should first be asking, what kind of sower is God? And Jesus' answer is beautiful. God is generous and patient and hopeful and persistent. God keeps sowing grace into places that seem forgotten and barren and that others would have written off. Which brings me back to school. In just a few weeks, I'll stand in front of classrooms and chapels filled with students ages 3 to 14. Some will be excited, some will be nervous, some will be eager to answer every single question I ask, some won't be sure that they belong there at all. And I won't expect May students in August because growth takes time. Every teacher learns this, every gardener knows this. And thanks be to God, the sower knows it too. God has never expected May fruit from August soil. So wherever you find yourself today, whether your faith feels strong or whether your faith feels fragile, whether you're just beginning, whether you're carrying questions, whether you're wondering why growth seems slow, remember this: the God who began a good work in you has not stopped. The sower is still walking through the fields, scattering grace, patiently tending what is not yet finished, believing that life can spring from places that no one else expects. Because your story isn't finished yet, and neither is God's work in you. Amen.